President Donald Trump appointed longtime friend Linda McMahon to lead the U.S. Small Business Administration. McMahon is well known as the co-founder of World Wrestling Entertainment with her outspoken husband Vince McMahon. This week she visited Portland as part of a nationwide tour to hear from small business owners about their challenges. She also stopped by KGW to talk about her trip and her relationship with President Trump.
He's pretty much committed to really making America great again, and I'm very proud to serve in his administration.
From KGW News, this is Straight Talk.
Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Ashley Korslin in for Laural Porter. This week marks 6 months since President Donald Trump's inauguration. His full cabinet is now in place, and it includes many people the president recruited from outside of government. He picked Linda McMahon to lead the U.S. Small Business Administration. McMahon previously served as CEO of World Wrestling Entertainment. She and her husband started the business with just a dozen employees and grew it into an 800-person global enterprise. McMahon was in Portland and Seattle this week touring small businesses. Before her tour started, though, she came to the KGW studios Tuesday morning to talk about the Small Business Administration and her impressions serving under President Trump. Here's our interview. Administrator McMahon, thank you for joining us on Straight Talk and welcome to Portland.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It was so beautiful flying in last night. Oh my goodness, the mountains were just gorgeous.
It's a beautiful city. Now you are here meeting with several business owners, including some very well-known businesses like Bob's Red Mill. What are you trying to accomplish on your Ignite tour?
Well, our Ignite tour really started because I wanted to visit every one of our 68 district offices, SBA's district offices all over the country. So I promised I would do that, but it's not just coming to visit the office. So while I'm here, I like to visit with small businesses. I like to hear what they have to say, what are their issues, where did they come from, how did they grow, what do they need from us, how can SBA be supportive. So today, as part of our Ignite tour, we're having a business roundtable. We are visiting small businesses. I'm walking around, through the Arts District and popping in and out of different businesses. But I'm really looking forward to continuing to hear from businesses all over the country as to what their issues are.
Now, a lot of people aren't really familiar with the Small Business Administration, what it does, or the fact that you have some 60 offices around the country, including here in Portland. So what is the mission of the SBA?
Well, it's interesting because I often start many of the speeches I give with SBA is one of the best kept secrets in the country. Because SBA, you hear SBA, you think loans for small businesses, but it is so much more than that. We have our mentoring services, our SCORE offices, our women's business centers, our small business development centers, our veterans outreach, all of these for mentoring and guidance purposes, helping to create business plans, how to get access to capital, etc. And it's all for free. You can go to the district offices or the SCORE office or the Women's Business Center and really get great counseling and mentoring. And what I found is that's often as important as access to capital for entrepreneurs just starting their businesses.
Do you hope to make the SBA less of a secret as you continue your journey?
That is absolutely my goal, to make it. And in fact, our folks here in Oregon at our district office in Portland are doing that very thing, working, to get the word out even more across, not just in the city, but across the state. Because it's such an incredible organization to provide information to our small businesses who are starting, and those who have been in business who want to scale up, those who are looking for government contracts in the procurement areas, because a lot of big businesses there are available to our small businesses for government contracts.
Now, you mentioned some of these listening sessions. You've held some already. What are you hearing from most of the business owners?
It's interesting because I'll just digress for a second. When we started the Ignite tour from Washington, D.C., we went to New York, we went to New Jersey, we went to Dallas, Fort Worth, we went to Indiana. I've been Pittsburgh, Puerto Rico, Fresno, California, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, and here I am in Portland. And I'm hearing really a consistent message really across the country, and that our small businesses are concerned with tax reform, with regulatory reform, and with healthcare reform, because those are the really big costs. So if you set aside from that access to capital, which all businesses need to start and to grow, those three topics are really the things that that I hear the most about.
Well, you mentioned healthcare reform, so let's talk about that, because the big news this week is the fact that Senate Republicans appear to have lost the votes they need to repeal and replace parts of the Affordable Care Act. So now President Trump is calling for Republicans to simply repeal Obamacare altogether and just come up with a replacement at a later time. Do you think that strategy is a good idea?
Well, when I continue to hear from our small businesses about the rising cost in health care, the premiums have just skyrocketed, you know, over 200% since the health care bill was first passed. So what our businesses are looking for really is a good program. They want a free marketplace. They want to be able to buy insurance. They want to provide health care, you know, for their employees, and many of them now can't do it. Many of them are staying under that 50, you know, that magic 50 number, because if they go over that, then they're mandated to have health care. So they won't go up to that. And so we are stifling business, we're stifling growth. And, you know, the president has clearly said we're going to repeal Obamacare, so I think we're on pace to make that happen.
Now, critics, though, to play devil's advocate here, critics of simply repealing the Affordable Care Act altogether, they worry that it could send the insurance market into kind of a tailspin. Do you feel that as a valid concern?
Well, I certainly don't think that the repeal portion would be, okay, today it stops. There would have to be some wind down period, and I think common sense would prevail on how to do that. But the president clearly ran on repeal and replace Obamacare. And I think today the evidence is very clear that Obamacare is imploding on its own. There are many counties, many states that only have 1 or 2 exchanges, and small businesses, in fact, in Nevada, have told me that they don't have any opportunity to buy health care, though they're mandated to buy health care. They can't go outside of the district for that exchange, but yet if they don't provide the health care, they still have to pay the penalty to the IRS. We can't let this stand.
Now, President Trump had famously promised that his cabinet selections would, quote, drain the swamp in Washington. So I'd like to ask, when you arrived at the SBA and in Washington, do you feel there was a swamp to be drained?
Well, I think that my being at SBA is such an incredible opportunity for me. It's right in my wheelhouse. When President Trump asked me to serve in this capacity, he said he wanted someone who had built a business from the ground up. And look, my husband and I have been bankrupt along the way. We lost everything. We know what it's like not to have access to capital. So having built a business that is now traded on the New York Stock Exchange, it is a global business. I have walked that walk, and I can talk the talk with our small businesses. So that's what President Trump wanted. He asked me one thing. He said, I have one request. And I said, what's that? He said, just please do a good job. And I told him I promised I would do the best I could. And if that wasn't good enough, I'd move aside and he could put someone who would do it better.
Now, you've had a fascinating career. Most people know you best as the co-founder of WWE, wrestling with your husband, Vince McMahon, who you just mentioned. Now, you've also been very active in politics. You ran for Senate twice. Your background, some might say maybe not the traditional path to leading into this position now. So what do you feel the lessons from WWE that you learned have helped you with the SBA?
Well, anytime you have built a business from the ground up, my husband and I started sharing a desk. And we built it market by market, step by step, all across the country. Have dealt with bureaucracies, have dealt with banking, have dealt with regulatory environments and all of that. So it clearly gives you a great background to understand what our small businesses go through. And so if I'm advocating on their behalf and doing our Ignite tour, really traveling around the country, I'm one of the few cabinet members who has the opportunity to do that and bring back information to Washington, to policymakers, to make sure that from our advocacy positions, that we are making sure that the voice of small business is heard in those policy decisions. And I think that's incredibly important, and that's one of the things that the president wanted me to do.
Now, you met your husband when you were very young. You were just teenagers, correct?
Yes.
And what was it that made your business so successful, skyrocketing from this small venture? I read somewhere that you served meatball sandwiches at your early events to, try to garner support and just build this business. So what do you think it was that really catapulted you into success?
Well, we were like so many entrepreneurs. You could be the CEO by day and you're the janitor by night, or if it is required that you get into the special events room and provide meatballs to the people who are there. But Vince and I actually made the meatballs at our house, rolled all the little meatballs for about 3 days. And he claimed that his meatballs got better with the more scotch that he drank. But I told him the meatballs got too big, the more scotch that he drank. So we had to keep them cocktail size. But you do everything. You know, I was the bookkeeper. I booked the cash receipts. You do everything when you're starting a business. And so I get that. And when I talk to small businesses, like when I'm out on our Ignite tour, as I will be doing today, and I'm telling them, look, I feel what you're saying. I understand it, and I'm going to be your advocate in Washington.
Now, you're also a big advocate of getting women involved in business and leadership positions. What advice would you give to young women who might want to follow in your footsteps or who might seek a political future?
Well, I don't think it's any different for women starting out than it is for men starting out in terms of making sure that you are focusing and concentrating on what you really want to do and where your passion is. But I started a company just before I was asked by the president to serve in this role called Women's Leadership Live, with 2 founders. And we were touring the country with different events because we were trying to give women that little bit of wind beneath their wings sometimes to understand what you need to do to make your elevator pitch, how you need to have confidence when you go in to ask for that promotion. If you want to get from middle management to the C-suite or to the boardroom, if you're starting your own business, here are the places you need to go to have access to capital. So women, incidentally, are starting more businesses today than men. They're more successful in their businesses right now than men are. But however, there are stats that show that even though women are starting more businesses, that very quickly men will out-earn them in revenues because women won't take the same risk. So I think we all need a little encouragement, and so in our women's business centers, there is that kind of advice that is there specifically for women. So I'm all about encouraging entrepreneurs at every level.
Your confirmation was among the least controversial of the cabinet level officials. Only 19 senators voted no, although those no votes included both Oregon senators who are Democrats. Senator Ron Wyden said he voted no because of concerns about WWE's health record and safety protections for workers. He said, quote, "The head of the Small Business Administration must be a champion of small businesses and employees, not someone who saves a buck by taking advantage of her workers." What is your response to that statement?
Well, he clearly doesn't know what he was talking about. If he would really look into the health and wellness policy at WWE, which actually I helped establish with WWE's chief medical officer for all of the precautions that are taken for the men and women who are in the ring, but also then the full health policies that are for employees outside of WWE. It's a #1 concern to make sure they're well cared for.
Now, obviously, you will have to work with a lot of these lawmakers, including some who voted no against your confirmation. So how do you plan to work with them, maybe specifically Senator Wyden, on issues affecting small businesses here in Oregon?
Well, that's why I'm doing this tour. That's why I'm on this Ignite tour, because I want to hear from businesses, because often even our representatives and our senators who are in Washington haven't connected maybe on a continuing basis with the folks who are in their states, who are in their districts, as to what some of their real issues are. So hopefully I can help supplement that and work with those senators by taking back my information to say, this is what I'm hearing in your district and in your state. How can we work together to make sure we can serve the country? So
you've known President Trump for years, well before his political days. What's he like as a person, and how would you describe your relationship today?
Well, we have known President Trump, my husband and I, for about 25 years. He's actually was involved in a couple of skits at WWE in the past. I have found him to be an incredibly loyal friend. He does what he says he's going to do. He really works incredibly hard, and he's pretty much committed to really making America great again, and I'm very proud to serve in his administration.
So the president is not particularly popular in Multnomah County. There were only about 17% of voters here who voted for him. He did a little bit better in suburban, Portland, and rural areas, but still lost by 11 points statewide. Safe to assume some of the business owners you're meeting with maybe aren't his biggest fan. I'm curious if that comes up in meetings, and what do you tell them to the people who maybe don't trust him when it comes to politics?
Well, I'd have to hear what they have to say. I'm not going to speculate on what any of the issues might be, but that is really the purpose of the tour. How can you know what people are thinking if you don't get out and talk to them? So that's part of my job. That's part of my task. I want to know what folks have to say. And, the bottom line is he was elected president of the United States, and I'm fully on board with being supportive of him and proud to be in his cabinet.
Surely it's come up, though, at some of these town hall meetings you've done. I mean, what do you tell them to kind of ease their concerns about the work you're doing with the SBA?
I haven't really heard those concerns. I've heard concerns about policy. I've heard concerns about health insurance. I've heard concerns about the regulatory environment and the tax environment, because what small businesses are telling me is, boy, we'd love to see taxes cut, because they are most of the time sub-S corps or LLC, sole proprietorship, so their income flows through their ordinary income account. So they're not worried so much about loopholes in this. They just say cut the rate. We're paying 35%, and boy, if you could get it to 15%, as the president says, or 20, that would be incredibly great. The regulatory environment is so strong. I'll give you an example. When I was campaigning for the Senate in the state of Connecticut, there was a nickel plating company that was there. And so there's a lot of caustic chemicals involved in that. And the owner told me, he said, look, I should be regulated. But, I want to make sure that I don't have anything here or practices that would harm the people working in my plant. I don't want to release, poisonous gases into the atmosphere. But let me tell you what happened. EPA came in and they couldn't find anything to write me up on. And they wrote me up because the signs on the men's and women's room were not regulation size. And I said, well, did anybody get confused and go in the wrong bathrooms? He said, no. And he said, but the thing of it is, if it's a rule or regulation that you're not, up to speed on, and you are told, I'll be back in 30 days, correct this. But that wasn't the case. They checked the box. They fined him $5,000. That's a lot of money for a small business. So the regulatory environment needs to be just. It needs to address the real issues and not go overboard. And those are the things I hear from small businesses.
Okay, questions about Russian interference with the election and the nature of contacts between Russia and the Trump campaign continue to dog the administration. It's hampered President Trump's ability to push a legislative agenda in some aspects. Do you feel that spills over into agencies like yours and how they conduct day-to-day business?
I have not in one business roundtable or one business that I have toured or any of my walk-arounds with small businesses in all the states I've been to already had the Russian issue raised one time. These are entrepreneurs that are looking to grow their businesses, and look, small businesses are the backbone of the economy. Even in Oregon, there are 98% of businesses in Oregon are small businesses, and over half of the population of Oregon are employed at small businesses. We have to grow this economy. Everybody wants the economy to grow. It's very hard when you're out there to hear people say, oh, I'm not in favor of small business. I don't want anybody to start a business. That just doesn't exist. And so the focus that I'm focused on, how do we help them grow and how do we help them be better?
And still to come, more of my interview with Administrator Linda McMahon. We'll discuss her opinion on increasing minimum wages in the Pacific Northwest and what she can do for businesses that were hoping the U.S. would join the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Straight Talk is back in 2 minutes.